Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to St Mary's Vicarage on this Wednesday, the 20th of January. And what a blowy storm we had last night. I had to say it was certainly rattling around the vicarage, and that's probably because we're up here on a hill in Handley, and it's not over yet. It's still blowing and blustering away, and I gather from Sue, our church warden, it's also blown part of a branch down, a large branch in the churchyard. So do be careful if you're out and about this morning, walking, having your daily exercise, particularly if you're walking under trees or near trees or anything like that, and structures, because it is still pretty windy. Morning, John. Morning, Paul. And hope you're all okay. But my thoughts and prayers are for those people in the parts of the country where once again they're facing serious flooding, and for some of them it'll be the third time I think they have been flooded in within a sort of a 5-year period. And I just think it highlights firstly the issue of how our climate is changing, and climate change, and the weather that it's producing, this new sort of very wet weather consistently, and also in a sense the lessons that haven't been learnt about building on floodplains and places like that, so that these rivers in the past had sort of natural places that they would flood out on, which would protect towns and such like, but lots of those floodplains have been built on, and we sort of reap what we sow, sadly. But I feel terribly for those people who, many of them may have just got their homes sorted out from the last time, and of course now are massively reliant on their homes because of lockdown, can't really go anywhere else, and are suddenly finding the water at the door. So let's pray for an abatement of this weather. But I hope we're reasonably high up in Handley, though I know it can flood in parts of the village. So let's just hope that all is well here in Handley. So just to share with you, because I think it's really important to share. Last night we had our scout meeting, Chase Scouts, Chalk Scouts, and all online on Zoom, which is great. And I have to say, it's great fun. I know the youngsters enjoy it, the children enjoy it, but I have to say, as a grown-up, I enjoy it too. It was really good fun. And our theme last night was Australia. We were looking at Australia. And this is partly because it's not only the youngsters that have to work towards badges in Scouts. As you know, if you've ever been in the Scouts, you work towards your badges, but the leaders have to do training. The training is very, very extensive in the scouting movement. I'd worked as a youth worker, full-time youth worker before, and I've worked with lots of voluntary youth workers. And though there was sort of training available and such like, not to the extent that scouting does it. Anyhow, as leaders, we were all in a sense doing our international module to work towards getting what's called excuse me, our wood beads, which demonstrates that we're sort of have done all the training as leaders. Anyhow, at Australia night last night, you can imagine I got my didgeridoo out, so I did some didgeridoo playing. But Nick, one of our leaders, we made borers, these things, which if you remember, Aboriginals, they spin them round, and they make this whirring noise, and absolutely brilliant, because I've got a real one of these, a real Aboriginal one of these, and it's a big heavy chunk of wood that's been sort of sanded and carved and everything. And Nick is a real genius, one of our leaders. He's brilliant at making stuff. He makes rockets and all sorts of things. So he came up with this, which is 2 bits of cardboard, a bit of string, a peg and some blue tack and sellotape. And we made these, and they actually work. They're really great. So it was a good evening last night to be with the youngsters. Always raises the spirits. And this morning in the family, we've just heard some really good news, which we're really thrilled about, which is that Ben, our youngest, has been offered a place now at University of the West of England, UWE, which is based in Bristol. There's two universities in Bristol, Bristol University and UAE. And he's been offered a place there to study drama. So we're really excited about that. He's still waiting to hear from two other unis, but that is his first choice. That was his first choice. So we're all really thrilled for him. So some good news in the Hancock household this morning. So there we go. Right. What is happening? Oh yes, I'll just share with you. I did mention the other day that you're probably aware that the deanery and the diocese are rethinking how ministry provision and the deanery here will be made up in the coming years. And this is partly in a sense because we've had to lose a clergy post. Many of you would have remembered Father Michael Foster, based in the Chase benefice. He is retired now, but that post is not going to be renewed. And the very large Chase benefice, some 13 parishes, is in a sense being broken up and will form parts of other benefices and team ministries. And this plan has been in the working for about 18 months, 2 years now. And it was given approval by Deanery Synod last week. That's only the first hurdle it has to jump. Just because Deanery Synod say they're happy with it, that's not fait accompli. There's lots of stages that have to go through and other consultations. But it is a sort of a clear indication of where we're heading. And certainly for us, as the Handley benefice, our proposed amalgamation with the three parishes on the Chase benefice, which would be Farnham, Chettle and Tollard Royal, on the whole is fairly uncontentious, though there is a lot of work to do and a lot of detail to look at. And the idea is, the proposal is, when my rural field officer job comes to an end at the end of 2022, because remember, I'm only half-time. The current three parishes only warrants really a half-time vicar here. Those parishes would amalgamate to form a new benefice, and that means you can have a full-time vicar. So anyhow, what was really good news yesterday is I had a lovely chat with Jill Baverstock. Jill is one of the church wardens at Chettle. She's also been the administrator for the Chase benefice, so a really fantastic person, has done a lot of work and helps organise the benefice. So she's been a key person there. So I had my sort of first conversation with her yesterday, just beginning to sort of look at what the process might be as we move down the road to this amalgamation. And it was a really positive conversation. Lots of really good ideas were shared across. I think we've got quite a lot we can learn from those parishes because they've been a much larger benefice. They have developed some working patterns and such like, which are very, very good, and some administration. And of course, Jill has overseen that, so it's a really positive thing. So it's a really positive conversation. And the sort of next step, in a sense, is that Jill is going to speak to the wardens in those groups, and then I'm going to meet with each of those church wardens separately, just to have a conversation with them to get their thoughts and ideas and such like. And then eventually, what I hope to do a little bit later on, probably in March, particularly if the lockdown has eased, is that we'll then be able to get together all of the church wardens from those parishes, so from Handley, Pentridge, Farnham, Chettle and Tollard, and have a sort of an open discussion to try and sort of develop a bit of a route map as to, how we'll move towards that, and to begin to look at the detail and things that we'll need to look at. So I was very buoyed up yesterday after that discussion. I've been through this several times before in my past incarnations as a rural dean in a large rural deanery. We went through three reorganisations, one big one and then two sort of minor ones. I went through in the past, my original parish had three churches in, a little bit like we had here. And when I took on that post, I knew that it was going to become a larger benefice. And then over my first sort of 3 or 4 years in that post there down in Shrivenham, our benefice went from 3 parishes to 7. So we expanded like that. So I've sort of walked this road before and sort of know how it works. So it's a good positive meeting last night. So I'll just sort of share that with you, and we will do our best. I will do my best, and you know, PCC and such like, to keep everybody in the loop and to listen and to try and hear what people's issues and concerns are, because my aim is very much to ensure that when the new benefice is formed, hopefully that, you know, that will be the case. So there are still some few hurdles to go over, that we have sort of really looked at all the issues and challenges that we'll face, and where possible have tried to deal with them, so that we move into a new benefice that will run and function well. Yeah, interesting times. So that's sort of what happened a bit yesterday. And then also I had a planning meeting with one of my fellow colleagues, Janet Smith, from the Rural Hope team, and 2 people from Verwood, lay people, their youth worker Helen and their pioneer minister Hank, because we're in the process of developing an Easter webinar. This is going to be a sort of webinar seminar online, to look at how we can celebrate Easter this year a bit out of the box, reaching out more to the community, and of course taking into account the issues of lockdown. Excuse me, I'll just drink a bit of coffee. We've got trouble with our boiler again. It's got a life of its own. You can turn all the power off, you can turn the thermostat off, you can turn the timers off, and it still runs. It did this once before. In the end, the only thing you can do is take the fuse out of the wall. And of course, what happened last night is the central heating did not switch off. We didn't realise this. It didn't switch off. It ran all night. And apart from having scalding hot water this morning, which I probably shouldn't complain about, of course, all of us are now completely dried out because the central heating's been running all night. So excuse me. Right. So yes, it was quite a busy day yesterday. Now, moving on to what we're sort of doing today, just looking ahead, this Sunday will be an online service. We'll review physical worship again at the beginning of February, see what the situation is. But to be honest with you, folks, brothers and sisters, I would be surprised if we resume physical worship. Probably won't resume until after half-term, or maybe even the beginning of March. The COVID rate around Dorset now is the highest it's ever been. And I think with this new variant, and I think we just need to let those numbers drop. We need to make sure the most vulnerable in our society, which have received the jab. I know lots of people are receiving the jab now, but of course most of our congregations are wiser in years, and we want to make sure they're all protected and such like. So we'll see what happens as we move on. So online service this coming Sunday. I'm thinking we might use the Celtic liturgy that we've used before from Iona. Just to sort of do something a little bit different. We'll use that this coming Sunday. So I'll tell you what. I've got Margaret's lovely book here of poems, which I read yesterday. I've got one from there, but let's start with our Bible reading. And of course, today is the big day, the inauguration of Joe Biden as the next president of the United States. And you know, oh dear, I just feel for that nation. It's so bitterly divided, and oh gosh, it's just so sad to see a nation that torn apart and divided. You know, but I think all of that has been bubbling away under the surface, and for many, many, many years. And you know, maybe in a sort of a strange way, the fact that you know, Mr. Trump, the fact that Donald Trump has, in a sense, ripped the lid off that can, it has caused immense problems and everything. But maybe, in a sense, if there can be a silver lining to this cloud, it will eventually really encourage the American people to have a long, hard look at themselves and the issues of intolerance and racism and such like that are prevalent in what is, you know, the or one of the most powerful countries in the world. So, you know, in a sense, maybe that lid coming off, you know, that might result in some change. Let's hope so. But prayers today for the new president and his administration and all the people of the US, that there may be healing and that they can find a way to celebrate, in a sense, their nation, the great achievements it has made, but also look at the bitterness and the divisions that have been in that land for many years. So yes, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Right, so our reading today, we're continuing to read from the letter of the Hebrews. So this is Hebrews chapter 7, beginning to read at verse 1. Let me find my right spectacles. There we go. You remember that Melchizedek, king of Salem, a priest of God Most High, went to meet Abraham, who was on his way back after defeating the kings, and blessed him. And also it was to him that Abraham gave a tenth of all that he had. By the interpretation of his name, he is first king of righteousness and also king of Salem, that is, king of peace. He has no father, mother, or ancestry, and his life has no beginning or ending. He is like the Son of God. He remains priest forever. This becomes even more clearly evident when there appears a second Melchizedek, who is a priest not by virtue of the law about physical descent, but by the power of the indestructible life. For it was about him that the prophecy was made, you are a priest of the order of Melchizedek, and forever. This is the word of the Lord. So, of course, this refers to the encounter of Melchizedek, the priest who blesses Abraham, and a priest back in the Old Testament without sort of beginning or ending. And that, in a sense, Jesus is the second Melchizedek, or is Melchizedek. And that wonderful phrase in here, but it is confirmed not by physical descent, by lineage, but by the power of an indestructible life, in a sense, by the power of the resurrection. So powerful stuff. Now, the readings of, just as an aside and a little bit of humour for you today, odd things at Theological College. So I spent my first year at Lincoln Theological College. I was due to go to Salisbury Theological College, believe it or not. I was all signed up, a bit like Ben. I got a place at Salisbury Theological College to do my degree in theology. And 2 weeks before my, what they call your selection conference, you go for sort of a 3-day interview selection. It's very rigorous process. But 2 weeks before that, they announced the closure of Salisbury Theological College. So people said to me if I was thinking of Salisbury, go and have a look at Lincoln. And Kate and I very hastily shot up to Lincoln to have a look at it, and we liked it, so we ended up there. Anyhow, in my first year at Lincoln, we had a beautiful chapel at Lincoln Theological College, and the stained glass window had this depiction of Melchizedek blessing Abraham. And what was particularly funny about the stained glass window, or the depiction of Melchizedek, for some reason, he wore purple and white striped socks. He almost sort of had, breeches on with socks, these purple and white striped socks. So within the theological college, there was a bit of a tradition that whoever was what we would call the senior student that year, I suppose a bit like head boy or head girl, but whoever was the senior student that year, at the beginning of the year in chapel, when they had a sort of little ceremony to mark the beginning of the year and announce who the senior student was going to be, they were then presented with the socks of Melchizedek, which were sort of long, stripy, the same colour, purple and white. I don't know where they got them from. And they were the socks of Melchizedek that was always handed over to the senior student. Of course, I only got to see that that once, and in my time, it was my lovely friend Richard Haggis, who I know some of you will know from Facebook, and he was presented with the socks of Melchizedek. Anyhow, that's the wonderful reading from Hebrews this morning. So now let's turn to Margaret. If you weren't with me yesterday, we do have some wonderful homegrown talent in our villages. We've got some wonderfully artistic and creative people. We have photographers, not just me. We've got other ones like Andrew Chorley. We have Ash Mills, who's a brilliant photographer. We've got artists, we've got poets and all sorts of things. And Margaret Quinn, who some of you will know, who lives up at Woodyates, lovely lady. She's a writer, and I did her a little favour. I was scanning some of her old slide film, her slides of her and her husband and things for her, and printing them out. And she gave me 3 little books of her poetry, which is lovely. So I thought we'd read some of them over the next few weeks. And quite a bit of Margaret's poetry is very based on her experiences with her family. And this is a lovely one because it's called The Gift of Hereford Beacon, and it's really talking about her husband as a grandfather with one of their grandchildren going up this hill and having a bit of an adventure. And when I read this, it sort of, I think all of us just long for that in a sense, when this virus is it won't be over. I think the cat's out the cat's out the box, as they say. But when we can sort of return to life as it was, and we can enjoy those relationships of spending time with our grandchildren or children or older parents or other relatives, and can just enjoy this time. And this poem captures that beautifully. So I want to share that with you this morning. The Gift of Hereford Beacon. Come on now, Grandad, said James, as they trudged up the hill. A slow walk was not what he wanted. His young body just couldn't keep still. I'll get to the top, James, said Grandad, but slowly, not racing like you. Let's take the hill nice and gently. 10 steps, then look at the view. For every stop was a lesson in history, for James' eager young mind. He learnt how the hill had an Iron Age fort, and of arrows that flew like the wind. How the red-haired Earl of Gloucester had constructed the fencing and ditching. Of the giant's cave, a hermit's home, but Grandad said something of witches. He heard of the Boer War field guns that had practised their shooting nearby, how some old shells had been found there until the army blew them sky high. And now it's all ours, Grandad, the path, his hill, the view. I'll charge with my stick for the final assault. I'll take the hill fort for you. At the top, the boy looked around him, his dark red curls flowing free. He gazed with that special lift to his chin. What inward dreams did he see? He was thinking now of Llewellyn, guarding his castle in Wales, or how Owen Glendour sought peace in the cave, and all Grandad's magnificent tales. He turned, and his smile was gentle. I've captured this hill fort for you, so we'll be able to stand here forever and look at this wonderful view. So thank you, Margaret. I know you're not online, but thank you for these poems. I hope you've enjoyed that this morning. It just, for me, captured, in a sense, that wonderful essence of family time. And my boys haven't been here, well, and us, we haven't seen my parents since the late spring, early summer last year, because they've just been very nervous of such like. So though we speak to them on the phone, they don't do computers either. and my father's never visited here because the time he was due to come down before the virus, he wasn't well himself. So I look forward, in a sense, to those family times again, and that poem captured it beautifully. Anyhow, folks, I hope you have a good day. Do stay safe today in these very windy conditions if you're out and about and such like. I suppose the advantage of a day like today with this horrible weather is you don't really mind being locked inside. You can be inside and it can be nice and cosy. And we can still, well, some of us, I can see the beautiful views and the weather changing up here. So it's a good day to be indoors. But anyhow, keep safe, folks, and I will see you all tomorrow. Let's just close with the grace. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen. Do take care, folks. God bless.